Alright, every meowdy. I'm not entirely sure what to call you all. Hooligans? Pikmins? Every pony? Let's just stick with every meowdy for now. I promised that in my 2024 State of Channel video, I was going to post more about my OCs, and, well, I have artfight refs to finish, so I'm going to talk about that while you watch me make some pretty pictures on the screen, okay? Okay. I'm only going to go over everybody that I made an updated reference for in some way. So, if you see anybody that looks interesting that I didn't have a chance to talk about today, yell at me in the comments and maybe I'll make a follow-up to this. So if you need some sort of excuse to just sit down and do it, feel free to draw along with me. Let's get those artfight references done. For those of you who are watching this and don't know what artfight is, it is basically a site-held competition-ish every year where people upload pictures of their OCs onto the internet so that people can draw them and they can exchange different drawings of their little guys. It's framed as a competition because the more characters you draw or the more rendered your finished piece is, it gives more points onto the team that you are on. There are two teams, and usually it's a pretty close fight, unless you're participating in a year where it is very blatantly Team Furry versus Team everyone else, just as for Team Vampire. No one necessarily needed any updated references, except for Omry. I fucking hate his sheet from last year. It is so ugly. I'm sorry, Omry. We're gonna be remedying that as soon as possible. Everyone needs to know about my old gay man right now. I'm not joking or being facetious here. He is literally over 200 years old. In terms of real life, Omry is, interestingly enough, also one of my oldest surviving and oldest used OCs. I made him back in middle school when I was like probably 12. He predates the series that I primarily use him for now, for the simple reason of he was originally a Five Nights at Freddy's OC that I shoved into Undertale AUs because that's what I was obsessed with back then. His name is completely different too. I call this early 1.0 of Omri Cole just for ease of access, basically, but he actually used to be a female raccoon lemur. And that was because, one, I didn't know how to draw at the time, and two, whenever I did draw, I didn't think it turned out very well, so I just said, oh, it's a lemur tail, but it's very bushy. I think the thing that made me want to breathe more life into him was just because I was having so much fun at a specific point of time in my life where I realized that I can do whatever I want. I could reuse old characters if I want to and just plop them from my fan fictions into things that I was creating without any context. I think that's funny. And the series that I'm creating, One Long Night, already facilitates a character being both a human and an animal at the same time, so it was really easy to just make a Gajinka out of him. So what used to be a interdimensionally traveling Five Nights at Freddy's raccoon lemur animatronic who was dating Error Sans, I think at the time, turned into a 200-year-old gay man with extreme memory issues and baggage who is one of the de facto leaders of his community, and he is trying so hard. The art itself was taken from, I guess, a line of inspirations. I was watching Delightful's video that she put out about her vampire Heathcliff and all of the different drawings that she made to put on the walls in one particular section of the video. And this specific digital painting really drew me in, and she explained that it was a reference to a artist called J.C. Leyendecker. You have most likely seen something that he's made before if you are interested in fashion industry, especially his series on arrow collars and shirts. I actually really enjoy the 1930s aesthetic, so I started doing research on Leyendecker as well, and while I chose to use the same reference image that Delightful did, I would absolutely love to do more stylistic influences of him in the future. He has this very interesting way of doing backgrounds where you can still see all of the different texture of the mist brushstrokes in it that I think is just absolutely delightful. And also I just found it fitting to use Leyendecker for Omry specifically because, like Omry, Leyendecker was gay. The main muse that he used for a lot of his advertisements was his life partner, Charles Beach. And I find it sad and lovely at the same time that you can't escape queer art. It is everywhere. Sad because we still live in a world where a lot of people have to hide who they are, but lovely because, well, we've always been here. Omri looks different pretty much every single time I draw him because I just love iterating on all of my characters, to be honest. In the advertisement that he's currently posing for, the word eclipse that is superimposed on him is actually the both brand name of and the last name of his godson's family and the fashion line that they produce. I don't have an exact frame of reference for when this quote-unquote photo would have been taken, well, series of photos would have been taken, but I'd wager it's at least 30, maybe 40 years before the actual events of One Long Night are supposed to take place. The only drastic difference between that Omri and current story Omri is that he probably has a bit more gray hairs because at this point he has been interacting with a teenager to a reckless young man, and, well, let's be honest, Adonis probably gives a lot of people gray hairs. It's not something he's very equipped for, but that's the responsibility that you take on when you become a guardian, so good luck, buddy! And yes, before you ask, the blackened sclera is absolutely a lingering effect from my days as a Five Nights at Freddy's fan artist, what have you. I don't think that's ever going to go away for me. I just think it's very fun and stylistically interesting to draw a animalistic humanoid character with blackened sclera. It's both just a good shorthand for inhuman and it looks cool, so I've been doing it for years now. One thing I really like to do, especially in Omri's case because it's such a good contrast with him, especially with the black hair, is having his eyes, Andrew eyes, be glowing white in the dark because it reacts specifically to the lack of light by inputting more light into the area. So their eyes literally glow. Like an animatronic, wow! Alright, next one's pretty simple. A lot of people on my Discord server were asking if I would upload any of my YouTube sonas to Artfight, and after thinking about it for like 5 seconds, I was like, sure, why not? Meowlian was pretty easy because he takes like 5 minutes to draw at the most, especially because he just has a lot of detail, but not a lot going on with him, if that makes any sense. Like, the most effort that you put into him is making sure that his opacity is up the entire way, because I like drawing him with one of my slightly transparent watercolor brushes. It just makes the outside border of the lines look a little bit smoother, blurred. It's just kind of a preference thing. I kind of just slapped on a quick milk mocha blush doodle onto there because I thought that his sheet that I made back in January didn't have enough of a range of expressions on it. I still find the little astronaut fishbowl cookie head thing. Very cute though. It reminds me of a video game that I had a idea for back when I was still actively doing game jams that I was never able to finish. Maybe I'll pick up Astro Cat again someday. That thing was really cute. But yeah, Meowlian didn't need a lot of changes. He's a cat, he's a marketable plushie, he's basically a Care Bear. You just kind of pick him up and shake him around and he'll flop over and you'll see his peepers start wobbling around like googly eyes. That thing has absolutely no thoughts in his head. Nos is also the other character that technically needed a ref, but I don't entirely count him because I actually didn't draw this initially for Artfight. I did it for a 30-day drawing challenge video that I never ended up finishing because that was right when I started to badly crash out during, like, I'd say March. I'd love to try to attempt it again because the 2 pieces that I did make for it were really fun. I just, funnily enough, didn't have the time. This was around the time where I was still kind of trying to figure out Nos's entire aesthetic and if I wanted him to just be a Deltarune OC specifically or more of a catch-all, this is just one version of him, one version of me sort of thing. I've leaned more towards the latter over the past few months because limitations aren't all that fun for me. I love having structured rules, but that's only because I enjoy learning how to break them at the same time. So my mindset at the time when I was drawing this was that because the prompt was for drawing a self-portrait and I don't enjoy drawing a one-to-one of myself, both for privacy reasons and because of, well, the everything about me, that it would be way more fun to lean more into the actual aesthetic behind my username, Mascara87. The lore for you is that, no, this was not named after Error Sands. It was because back when I was younger, I had even less of an idea how to use computers than I do now. So anytime I attempted to do anything on a website, I would somehow find a way to crash it so badly that no matter what it was, it would always show the 404 error screen. And I thought this was so funny at the time that I decided to lean into it and just brand myself around being really bad at technology. So instead of getting upset whenever I would see an error screen, I would actually be excited because I'd just go, haha, that's me. So I decided it would be cool to lean into that by having the actual blue screen itself have an error inside of it. Partially because it just makes it more readable because of Nos's pose, and also just because I think it looks really cool. This was also around the time where I was experimenting more with, it doesn't matter if it looks polished, I just wanted to get a piece done because I was going through the minds of feeling like no matter what I did, I was never able to finish a piece. I just wanted to finish something. I think I worked really well within this limitation, so as a result, even though I was not doing well when I drew this, I'm still really proud of how it turned out, and I'm happy enough with showing the actual process behind it. You did it, dude! You finished something! You drew it! Good job! The biggest difference between this Nos and the one that's on his quote-unquote proper reference sheet that I should probably redo one of these days is that he's wearing basketball shorts. One, because it's a style that I tend to lean more towards when I'm going out somewhere, and 2, because sans Undertale. For Deltarune Nos particularly, this design for him is actually his Dark World form. This is mostly because of necessity. When I was originally concepting him for the 1-hour Penumbra Phantasm video on my channel, I needed to use Dark World backgrounds and Dark World footage for the majority of it because I only had footage for Chapter 1 when I was doing my B-roll. It wasn't because I didn't want to replay Chapter 2, it's because the one person that I particularly wanted to watch it hadn't actually played Deltarune Chapter 2 yet, and I didn't want to spoil them if I could help it, so I'm actually pretty happy with this decision though, because I think it not only makes him live up to his name, Nostalgia, but it makes his colors pop out more and a bit more vibrant, and it also gives me some fun ideas to be able to play with his bowling carpet shirt design. It also gives me room to think about what Light World Gnosis aesthetics would be. I like to lean more in on the thought of self-expression through clothing and how color theory leans into that. So maybe we desaturate him, maybe we give him a lot more of a sharp looking design, add baggier clothes onto him so that he's not entirely comfortable around other people. Leave him alone, but don't actually leave him alone. He's got issues and self-consciousness to deal with. He'll figure it out. However, I also have to take into account that he works mostly at the school as the janitor and at Sans' Combini as probably a co-owner or something, and they switch shifts, so I have to make sure that I give enough credence to his design where you would still be able to recognize him with a work uniform. I don't know, I'll play with it. That's the kind of fun that you have when you're working within the limitations of a universe. I still have yet to actually sit down and draw a properly rendered version of his light world form, so if I have the time before Artfight comes up and before I post this video, I'll try to find a way to throw it in here. It is heavily influenced by Underfell Sands, especially because that's just kind of the aesthetic that I absolutely adored as a teenager, and I still kind of do. The biggest difference between them, though, is this giant tooth zipper patch something that I saw in a much earlier sketch of Nos when I was concepting him, back when I had a more humanoid design for him that I think looks really interesting. I thought it was a shame that it wouldn't work very well with Darkner Gnosis aesthetic, so I guess the lesson is look through your old concept art. Sometimes you find something that absolutely eats and you just forgot all about it because you decided not to use it at the time for that one character that you were drawing for. The philosophy of having animals to represent myself is funny because I don't consider myself a furry, but I believe in their beliefs, and also the whole if you have a persona, that means you're technically a furry. According to Discord member Jesse Nova, I have the qualifications for a furry, but I didn't have to get the job. I got a degree in anthro designs and I'm not gonna throw it away, damn it! But that's Nos. No big design changes with him, surprisingly, just a nicer, cleaner version that I can put up that people will feel more incentivized to click on. Next baby. Karon! I'll be honest, I probably needed to update him the least out of everyone because I am already extremely pleased with his previous main picture for Artfight. But that one was done to be a challenge to myself of whether or not I could intentionally emulate Hiveswap Friend Sim's art style as closely as I possibly could. And it's not bad to want to give a character a fresh coat of paint if you love them so very much. I don't draw my son very often in this version of him very much anymore because I actually have a far more humanoid version of him now. But Clown Troll Karon and Andrew Karon are so completely different characters to me now that if I ever ended up drawing a proper rendered version of Andrew Karon, I would list them as separate characters entirely if I ever uploaded him to Artfight. Back in the day, I designed him to look as menacing as I possibly could while still having just this little bit of appeal to him. I wanted to challenge myself to draw a character with a far bigger, more muscular build because a lot of my OCs back then had very similar body proportions, and that's something that I always want to actively work on because I love drawing big people. I love drawing plus-size people. I like chubby girls. I like big men with broad shoulders. I joke that Karon is like 11 feet tall, but He probably is somewhere around 11 feet tall. He's a big, big boy. So when you are intentionally going out of your way to make a Homestuck troll that is supposed to be a big boy, clowns are kind of your first thought process into that, mostly because of that one panel of the Grand High Blood. Maybe that's just me, but I love a big clown. I was absolutely more than happy to add a clown troll OC into my roster, and I thought it would be fun not to go through the more obvious route, but to make him a laugh assassin. It's a role that's talked about very briefly in the comic, but we never see any canon representation of what any of that would look like, so that means I could just make up whatever I wanted with the uniform, and I thought it would be really fun and visually striking to have a sort of ribcage element on his jumpsuit that both emulated a spider-like design kind of closing in on you, and bones. This is a guy that works in bones because he kills people, because he's an assassin and he's big and scary. Honk honk. Purple and gray obviously mix well together, and when I was making him, I had a lot of characters with stripes on them. It's still something that somewhat lingers in Nosa's design today. So that explains the black and white gauntlets. The quadrant symbols that make up different parts of his uniform are actually jewelry embellishments that he's added himself. Mostly for some sort of religious reason that he doesn't like to talk about. I like to think he has an almost sort of obsession about it, despite also being a big scary clown that isn't able to get very close with people due to his job and his general nature. He talks very slow and he struggles to express himself, and he also just doesn't enjoy partaking in soap operas, so that limits a lot of his social interactions. You'll figure out you're on the Arroway spectrum sometime, buddy. I believe in you. The pose chosen here was, simply put, a blatant reference to Marvis Sholoto because that's actually his ancestor. I thought it'd be really funny for Marvis to be a daddy and for his offspring to have such a completely different life than him, and also be obsessed with Marvis to the point where he just desperately wants to have any sort of connection with him in general. Hence the ridiculously long gold dangle earrings. They're a sort of, I'm connected to you through this opulence that I don't need, but I aesthetically want. I liked the expression that I gave Karon in my initial drawing of him, but his face is not the way that I usually draw characters, so I wanted to restructure that a bit in this attempt. And I really like how he looks here. You can't really tell what he's thinking, and that is absolutely the number one autistic appeal win of him. Is he angry? Is he hungry? Is he desperately trying to find a way to get out of this situation because he is just as awkward as you are? Who knows? He also has shorts on, but not because of me. My brother actually drew him with that once because he wanted to interpret Karon in a different direction, and I really liked it, so I gave it to him. He can also have basketball shorts as a treat. His makeup is a bit inspired by the way that a human skull is structured, but not to the point where it's blatantly obvious. I just kind of messed with how his face looks until I was happy with it, to be honest. I kind of view Karon and Marvis's hair as a bit wiry, so I wanted to capture that a bit more in this drawing of him. And I wanted to slightly restructure how his horns work because I drew them way too big in the last one. Buddy, how do you go to sleep? What is gravity doing to your neck? Your poor, poor neck. One of them is supposed to emulate a treble clef, and the other is snapped because he was on a assassination job to get rid of the heiress of the time, and he did not do very well. He failed. The heiress can either be a fan character or furry. It really depends on what setting I place him in, mostly because he's the troll that I tend to use the most in RP settings. What else about Karon? The backdrop behind him is blood. It's troll blood. It is very obviously troll blood if you've ever read the comic, but I don't think the artfight mods need to know that, so I'm gonna keep it up. And of course, because it's the Hemo Spectrum, I had to have a range of colors decorating his body. The purple blood is his own, but the others are all the people that he's beat up or killed or whatever today. I like him a lot. He's a very, very fun character to draw. I've been told by a couple people that his design is a bit complicated, but I don't care. He's not a character that I draw very often, so it's a bit of a treat to be able to add all of those frivolous little things onto him. That's my enrichment. That's my pumpkin in the enclosure, is cute dangly earrings and Five Nights at Freddy's The Puppet Gauntlets and Hemo Spectrum jewelry. Oh, his name is an amalgamation of Karon from Greek mythology, the guy that is the boatman for the River Styx, and I can't verify it anymore, but at the time that I was creating him, I at least believed that one of the sons of Violent J or Shaggy 2 Dope was also a juggalo, and his handle was Joy Boy. I thought it was cute, and also it was a bit of a nod towards a far more successful juggalo being Karon's father. Yes, I know that's not how troll reproduction works, I just think it's funny to call Marvis Karon's daddy. I wasn't particularly concerned with how rendered this final image was. I also just wanted to get it done. I was experimenting the day that I was making him, and I think he looks great. I also took the time to add a couple of features, like changing his nose structure and making sure that his palms were lighter than the outside of his hands, because I wanted Karon to be more obviously black-coated. It's always something that I have intended for him to be read as, and it's still something I'm actively working on, but I think that, at least for Troll Karon, he looks pretty decent here. Andrew Karon is outright black, so I wanted to be able to add more onto that for Troll Karon. And at least for now, I'm pretty happy with him. Bye, Karon! I think that should wrap up things here for today. I don't really want to draw any more characters, so I hope that's it. I have to conserve my energy for Artfight after all, but I'm pretty happy with the progress that we've made here today.
And I lied. I'm a liar. I'm a big liar. I fooled you with my roguish charm and wit. We have one more. And that one more would be Nos again. I decided that while I was in the middle of editing this video and pulling up some new images for him, that I had a little bit of free time. I could probably try to slap together some sort of reference. But as always, this man had other plans for me. Oh no. I wanted to use Underfella's, which is Underfell's AU's creators' recent drawings as a starting off point to just get a feel for how I wanted to draw his clothes, especially because I really like using clothes to express a character's personality. And I didn't really have very much of an idea of where I wanted to take this beyond. I wanted his colors to be a lot more saturated and darker in the Lightroom. I view the Dark World black light effect as a metaphor for giving someone a more vibrant design, and therefore, in Rose's case, a more vibrant personality. But as I was getting a feel for this concept and this design, I realized that I didn't actually like the thought of making a more miserable version of a persona. Even if Nos isn't fully meant to be representative of myself, he is still a part of that, and I don't know, I just didn't like the implications of that.
Luckily for me and everyone else in existence, this was about the same time as I was having discussions in my Discord server about, spoilers for Deltarune Chapter 3, Ram. I love Ram. I love that he bucks the trend of being this seemingly unimportant yet mysterious secret boss character by just genuinely really caring about and being somewhat of a mentor figure for Chris. I thought that was kind of sweet, and since I am very attached to a lot of Toby Fox's shopkeepers, it makes sense that Nose would too. So I didn't like the original concept for him, and I thought that was kind of important to share in this video and not erase, because I think that the iteration process for making characters, its ups and its downs, is fun and fascinating. So what is Lightworld Nose like? What function does he serve? Well, there is already a older character who is seemingly friends with Chris's brother, but Pizza Pants is a very specific case of older guy that you realize in hindsight was always a massive loser. So something fun, but in a different flavor, would be older guy who was friends with your brother, who you still kind of think is cool, and also he smokes a little weed. Does he still have a severe case of RBF? Yes, but the Dark World just allows him to become more vibrant. It is still always a part of his personality. Something Dark Worlds being a metaphor for escapism, something escapism allowing you to grow into a more expressive you. Nos is someone who used to go to the Dark World/Worlds a lot as a kid, like it's implied Chris and maybe Azzy and Des used to, but now he's a lot better adjusted as an adult because of those experiences in those Dark Worlds, and he doesn't feel like he needs to be there to be the person that he is now. So very much capturing the vibe of young adult who played Undertale when it came out, and he turned out fine actually. He just needed a little bit of help. He's fine, he's still got that second job at Girlby's, Sans's, because he's not allowed to smoke when he's working on the school property, and not because anybody told him to. Why would he ever risk doing that in front of Toriel? But because he knows that you're not supposed to smoke weed on public children's property. He and Sansa actually knew each other through the internet at first, and is the reason why he and his brother even moved out to hometown in the first place. He and Sansa are in a QPR, because I think that's funny. Deltarune has changed a lot as a character, actually. He was originally conceived to just be a simple mechanic that allowed you to replay boss fights and minigames and other such things in the Dark World. And now he's a Lightner who's roughly a little bit older than Asriel, and all of his exciting adventures happened before the actual story started. So now he's just a background NPC that you can usually find in Dark Worlds, kind of hanging out. Usually he'll let you replay minigames and bosses of the chapter via a "So tell me how your day went, champ," or some such thing. He doesn't have the power to vanquish fountains, though, or anything like that, because that's Chris's deal. That wouldn't be fair. It also circumvents the need of him being a party member, because that would kind of mess with the entire journey that Chris and the entire group are going on. He is not one of the prophesized warriors. He's just a guy that happens to be there. The grown-up in the room, if you will. Discord user Toth pointed out that that would mean that he'd be privy to a lot of things only Chris would be aware of, while the rest of the cast just had no idea about any of this stuff. And yes, he would. It also means that he's personally met a lot of the Darkner characters. So, spoiler again for Chapter 3, that's where Ram went. He just holds Ram. Ram was in his pocket. Ram's fine. I think that end of the day for each chapter, you would end up finding him somewhere around or in Swatch's cafe because, well, do I even need to say it? They're on a date. You're interrupting their date, Chris. Get out. And maybe his original mechanic of being a sort of secret boss memory character might go up and play again
if Toby doesn't do anything with the concept, because, well,
Nos was originally made way back in the day as a Fullmetal Alchemist OC that represented the 8th deadly sin of nostalgia. And that's where we're gonna leave things for today because I don't want to record anymore. Jesus Christ, please don't let me add anything onto this video. Please, 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 please.
Are you gonna participate in Artfight this year? Have you finished all your refs for everybody yet, or are you planning on winging it? No matter what, I hope this video helped inspire you to blow some dust off of some of your older characters, or consider making a new one. Have a nice day, happy Pride Month, have a safe July, and don't forget to do something nice for yourself, okay? You've got this. Bye! When the kitty is in shrimp mode, and he shrimply is a cat, climbs up on my bed to take a nap. Now's the time to pick up the code. That in heap is where it's at, or you will suffer tooth attack. Beware or you will get paw back.